My car's reflection in a passing truck showed someone else in the driver's seat. I was on the highway, rain slicking the asphalt into a liquid mirror, headlights cutting through sheets of water in wavering lines. The highway was empty, stretching into the night like an unbroken ribbon of darkness. And I was alone. At least I thought I was. I caught the reflection because the truck moved past at a speed that made the rain streak sideways across its windshield. And for a second, the shape behind my wheel wasn't me. I slammed my eyes shut and rubbed them. My knuckles pressed hard into the leather steering wheel, slick with condensation. When I opened them, I was staring at the rearview mirror. My hands were there, gripping the wheel, my eyes fixed ahead, but the reflection, it lingered for a heartbeat too long after I had blinked. A shadowy figure crouched just slightly too forward, head tilted at an impossible angle. It mimicked me imperfectly. Its shoulders didn't quite line up, its fingers jittered across the wheel as if testing their purchase, as if learning how I drove. The rain pattered against the roof, soft, insistent. Each drop that hit metal sent vibrations into the frame of the car, a dull resonance through my chest. I could hear the engine, a steady hum that thrummed beneath me, and yet, whenever I glanced at the reflection, there was a whisper of discord. A subtle lag in the timing of the turn signal, a microsecond delay in the motion of my hands. The figure did not exist outside of glass, yet it had presence, a quality that made the hairs along my spine prickle. I tried to rationalize it. A trick of wet surfaces, refractions in the windshield, the truck's headlights catching at the wrong angle. My pulse thudded in my ears as I told myself this. But when I adjusted the rearview mirror, angling it slightly, I caught it again. Not in the windshield this time, not behind me, but seated firmly in the reflection, watching. Its head tipped just so, eyes glinting faintly like wet stones. I jerked the wheel slightly to the left, nearly fishtailing on the rain-slick curve, and the reflection moved independently, keeping pace. It was aware of me, but not afraid. The road stretched endlessly, and I started noticing small inconsistencies. The lane markings would bend unnaturally, curving then snapping back as if the world had briefly distorted. The lines of the guardrail glimmered in my headlights and then flickered, fractured in my periphery. When I glanced at the side mirrors, the rain-beaded reflections warped, showing glimpses of objects I didn't recognize. Trees twisted over themselves, distant lights that shouldn't exist, and shadows that moved too quickly, too deliberately. The reflection began to act on its own. At first, subtly, a tightening of the hands on the wheel, a slight lean to the right when the road was straight. I countered instinctively, my heart racing, my head snapping forward to the road ahead, but the reflection, it smiled. Or at least, the shape of a smile curved along its shadowed face, imperceptible yet undeniably wrong. The windshield wipers became unreliable, swiping in stutters as if resisting my command. Rain streaked in unnatural patterns, cutting through the distorted light in long, jagged lines. I tried turning on the defroster, the heater, anything to make the windows clear, but the reflections persisted, unaffected by physics or the car's mechanisms. I felt the vibration of the engine shift beneath me, not following throttle or terrain, but in rhythm with the figure's movements. I tried to shake it. I looked away, closed my eyes, counted to 10, then opened them. My hands were in the right place on the wheel, my posture correct, but the figure remained. It mirrored me exactly, yet too smoothly, movements hyperreal yet somehow off. Its head turned slightly faster than mine. Its fingers flexed in anticipation, preparing for inputs I had not made. I felt the uncanny sensation of being studied, guided, manipulated by something that existed only as a reflection. The further I drove, the more distorted the world became. Side mirrors reflected scenes from nowhere. A service station that wasn't there before. A road veering sharply into what looked like a canyon that did not exist. Trees with bark like skin. Occasionally, the reflection would vanish completely, leaving my own face staring back, but only for a moment. Then, when I blinked, it was there again, watching, smiling, experimenting with gestures, sometimes pressing on the horn for no reason. I could feel it through the vibrations in the steering wheel, the subtle, uncanny tremor beneath my hands. I began speaking aloud, to anchor myself. "Who are you? What do you want?" My voice was small in the car, barely carrying over the rain. The reflection didn't answer, yet it responded. A tilt of the head, a flexing of fingers that mimicked typing, as if controlling something invisible. I realized with horror that it was learning me, copying me, but also anticipating me. It was no longer a reflection. It had a mind of its own. I tried to pull over at a deserted rest area, tires hissing on wet asphalt. But the car refused. The figure in the reflection leaned forward, not violently, but with undeniable authority. The engine hummed, vibrations intensifying, seat vibrating against me as if pressing me into place. My hands jerked uselessly. The steering was only partially mine. I understood then. I was sharing control, or perhaps never had it at all. The sky above the highway was pitch, unbroken by stars or moon, only the dim reflection of city lights far behind. Rain pelted down harder, turning the windshield into an opaque veil. I tried lowering my speed, breathing rapidly, trying to coax the reflection into mirroring hesitation, but it refused. Every small adjustment I made was countered, every thought anticipated. I felt my heartbeat thump in sync with the vibrations, a shared rhythm with something that should not exist. Mirrors began to glitch further. The rear view reflected the highway behind, then a darkened room, then a forest, then back again. Each shift lasted only a fraction of a second, but it was enough. In one fleeting reflection, the figure's eyes locked onto mine in a way that made me stumble backward, hands trembling. I reached for the radio, hoping for a human voice, a connection, but static filled the cabin, punctuated by faint whispers, almost like breathing, almost like speech in a language I couldn't understand. Hours, or was it minutes, passed. Time had lost coherence. The reflection experimented boldly now, tilting its head to impossible angles, raising hands in gestures I had never made. Once, it pressed an invisible button on the dashboard and laughed softly. A sound that didn't come from the car, but from inside my skull. I couldn't tell where the boundary between me and the reflection ended. And then, the final impossibility. I glanced at the rearview mirror, expecting the figure. It was gone. Relief surged for a heartbeat, then froze. My own reflection remained. Only my eyes weren't mine. They were the same whetstone glint I had seen before, cold, deliberate, alien. My hands gripped the wheel, but they moved with a certainty I did not recognize. The rain continued to streak down the windshield, smearing the night into streaks of gray, white, and shadow, and I realized I was no longer driving alone, or perhaps I had never been alone at all. The hum of the engine matched my heartbeat, the tires hissed on wet asphalt, and the reflection smiled, and I couldn't look away. The call, a payphone on the shoulder, rang as I drove by, displaying my number. I didn't notice it at first. The highway had been empty for miles, the asphalt slick with rain, headlights slicing through sheets of fog that seemed to gather more densely the farther I drove. The forest pressed in on either side, a wall of black trunks and misty branches, and the road beneath me hummed with the low vibration of tires on wet asphalt. My windshield wipers beat a steady, hypnotic rhythm, smearing the rain into streaks of light and shadow. Then I saw it. A payphone, standing alone on the shoulder like a relic from another time, its metal gleaming wetly under the beam of my headlights. The fog hugged it, curling around the receiver, pooling in the space beneath the small overhead lamp. It was impossible. I was certain of it. I had driven this highway countless times. There was no payphone here. Not in the past, not now. And yet, there it was, ringing. My pulse quickened. I swerved slightly, tires squealing, then regained the lane. The display on the payphone, small, pale, digital, flared against the fog. My own number. I blinked. My hands tightened on the wheel. That number hadn't been printed anywhere near the highway, couldn't have been known to anyone. It was private, personal. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it. Fog can play tricks. Rain can distort light. But the ringing persisted, rhythmic, insistent, and for a heartbeat, It sounded like it carried a voice beneath the metallic ring, a faint, distorted imitation of my own tone. I kept driving, glancing in the side mirror. The payphone remained there, though I should have passed it, should have left it behind. But in the reflection, it seemed to stretch, elongate, the cord curling upward like a snake, and the receiver bouncing as if weightless. It was moving in ways it shouldn't. The highway's silence pressed around me. Not just the absence of cars. The deep, unnatural quiet of a world paused. My tires hissed on wet asphalt, the wipers rhythmically smearing the rain, and yet I felt a watchful presence, subtle at first. The impression of eyes tracking from the fog beyond the treeline, a shadow shifting unnaturally behind a bent tree. Every glance at the mirror suggested movement where none should exist. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was someone ahead, pulling off to check the phone. Maybe a prank. My voice trembled as I whispered to myself, "It's just a phone. Someone's playing a joke. Keep driving." But even as I said it, the display on the payphone seemed to pulse, numbers glowing brighter, impossibly bright for such a small screen. My reflection in the windshield shifted with it. Eyes wider than they should be, movements ever so slightly delayed, like a lagging shadow mimicking me imperfectly. Rain began hammering harder, drumming on the roof, the hood, the windshield. The engine's hum felt exaggerated, vibrating through my chest in a way that seemed synced with my heartbeat. I glanced down at the dashboard clock. Seconds ticked irregularly, stretching and snapping back. Time was warping. The highway was repeating itself. The same bend, the same curve, the same patch of reflective asphalt. Each repetition carried the phone closer, though I had never turned around. I thought I heard it. A faint voice, barely audible over the rain. A whisper through the static of my radio. "Answer, answer." I yanked the dial to change stations. The voice persisted, clearer, sharper, almost coherent. I slammed the knob, and the rain's sound seemed to deepen, the wind whistling through the car like a collective breath. My mirrors began to warp. The rear view reflected more than just the road behind. Shapes that shouldn't exist, forests twisted over themselves, flashes of a figure standing by the phone, faceless, tall, and impossibly still. I realized, with a slow, paralyzing dread, that the payphone knew more than it could. My life, my habits, my fears, all cataloged in its silent screen. The ringing persisted, though I hadn't pressed the horn or slowed. Somehow it followed me. Its digital display flickered. Sequences of numbers, fragments of my address, my mother's birthday, things I had never shared outside my mind. The fog thickened, clinging to the car, muffling the sound of the highway beyond. I tried to focus on the road, tried to ignore the reflections, the impossible knowledge, the sensation of being observed. But every turn, every swerve, was mirrored in subtle distortions. The rear view showed my hands moving slightly before I moved them, shadows bending at angles my body could not. The air inside the car became heavy, humid, tinged with the faint smell of ozone, like electricity before a storm. My throat felt dry, though my lips were wet with rain that had leaked through the vents, or had it. And then the ringing stopped. For a heartbeat, there was only silence. Then a click. The receiver lifted on its own. I could see it in the fog, cord stretching upward, the handset levitating, trembling slightly as if poised to speak. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. "Hello!" The voice was mine, or at least it sounded like mine, but not. There was a weight behind it, an unnatural cadence, like a recording played too slowly, stretched over itself. "Do you remember?" I didn't answer, couldn't. My hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white, and I forced my eyes forward. The fog pressed close, dripping onto the windshield, my breath fogging the glass. I felt it in the car, felt it in the vibrations of the engine, in the rhythm of the rain. The call was no longer distant. It had crossed the boundary, entered the space I occupied. Then came the impossibility. The display on the payphone blinked once more. Not my number, someone else's. A number I didn't recognize. Yet somehow, I knew it. I knew it because I had dialed it hours ago. Or had I? Memory faltered, splintered. The phone's ring now matched the pulse of my own heartbeat. The car's mirrors reflected the road correctly. Yet for a fleeting moment, I saw the phone in the back seat, the handset rising slowly toward me. And then I understood. I had already answered, perhaps before I ever saw the phone, before I ever noticed the fog, before I realized the road repeated itself endlessly. I had spoken into that receiver, whispered things I hadn't consciously remembered, shared truths that no one should know. The call had been coming from me, and to me all along. The rain intensified. The road stretched into impossibility. Fog swallowed the trees, the shoulders, the lights. And somewhere, just beyond the reflection of the windshield, the payphone waited, ringing once more. My number displayed. My voice echoed faintly in the glass. I didn't reach for the receiver. My hands were already on it.